Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Gregory Gene Conrad, and he is the author of Fighting the War Against OCD, A Season in the Life of Gregory Gene Conrad. Gregory, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
I'm in my mid-30s and I have OCD. A couple years ago, I self-published a book about my experiences with OCD.
So tell us about your book.
So it's a first-hand account of what living with OCD is like. Of course, OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder, and it just helps people understand it better.
So who did you write your book for specifically?
Specifically, I wrote the book for the friends and family members of those who have OCD so that they can get inside the heads of their loved ones just enough to help them understand why their loved one keeps repeating these behaviors over and over and hurt them, and that are, to put it mildly, inconvenient for them in their life, why they're still doing these things that don't make any sense, and how it makes sense that they're doing that.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you could say runs throughout your book?
Just how awful OCD is, and that it's really something that it's like this taskmaster that is always at your side, that's driving you to do these things that don't make any sense at all, but you have to do them because you have this guy at your side. In a way, it's like someone holding a gun to your head and telling you to do stuff. You're probably going to do the behaviors that are being asked of you if someone has a gun to you, and that you'll do that whether or not what they're saying is like rationally sound, or if they're like, go and rob a magazine from a store, and you know that, well, that's definitely wrong and I don't want to ever do that, but I have this gun on me right now, and so I'm going to do that right now. And saying that, I'm not saying that people with OCD are going to out and commit a bunch of crimes, but it's that kind of driving force that makes them wash their hands for 8 hours a day until they're bleeding.
Now, if you could compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
So in terms of books about OCD, it's the most similar to a book called Just Checking, but that book has some sexual content in it, so this is a much cleaner read. And as far as mainstream-ish audience recognition, The Boy Who Couldn't Stop Washing His Hands, Brain Lock, Getting Control, those are probably the most well-known books written about OCD, but they're written from a clinical perspective by a doctor on how you get better. And this is just delving into the mind of someone that has OCD purely to create better understanding.
What causes OCD?
So there's some chemical levels in the brain, a chemical called serotonin that's off. I can never remember whether it's too much or too little, but that difference sure impacts you. The bigger thing to me is that in a normal brain, there's a bunch of different areas, and two of them are the cingulate gyrus and the cerebral cortex. And the cerebral cortex is like the human autopilot. It's what enables us to approach a door and open the door without thinking, oh, I need to open the door. The cingulate gyrus is in charge of things like adrenaline, and it initiates fight or flight. And so normally these two areas are separate in the human brain. In a person with OCD, they've become somewhat fused together. So now your brain starts to send you the message of you're approaching a door, you need to open the door, and then the cingulate gyrus catches that message because it's no longer separate and distinct from the other part, and it says, danger, warning, do not touch the doorknob, or if you do, you have to use a pair of gloves or a napkin, but whatever you do, don't touch that doorknob. So that's just one example of how the fusion or brain lock can severely hamper a person and make their life very painful and unenjoyable.
So what was the catalyst for your diagnosis, and how did you react?
My mom was the one who made the call. She saw me coming back from high school each day, and I'd be very freaked out by the bathroom and what I saw on the ground in the bathroom and how I was going to catch some disease and die. And if I remember right, she said that my face was very pale and I was sweating a ton and just a nervous wreck, totally panicked. And so after that was going on for a little while, she figured she needed to call the mental doctor, a psychiatrist, and see what was going on. As far as my reaction to it, I wasn't happy at all. I had grown up with a stigma against psychiatrists and psychologists. I thought of them as quacks, and I thought of myself then as a monster because I needed to go see one of these people that there must be something very, very, very wrong with me. And there was, but at the same time, that was greatly inflated by the OCD to where I was thinking, I'm a monster, this is awful. But I'll be forever grateful to my mom that she did initiate that process because it helped save my life.
Now, is there a cure for OCD?
There isn't, at least not right now. It's about controlling it the best you can, but it's always going to be there. So for me, I always, when I think about this question, I think about the very end of the movie A Beautiful Mind, where he just got the Nobel Peace Prize or whatever the prize was. And his wife afterwards, she sees something flash across his face and she asks, what's wrong? Are you okay? And it shows that that character, that person is seeing the hallucination people because he had schizophrenia. And so he sees them off to the side, and this is years later, and he just says to his wife, no, everything's fine, I'm perfectly fine. So, in other words, his schizophrenia manifested itself for the rest of his life. He just learned to not give those people / hallucinations any priority in his life, to just totally ignore them the best that he could. But OCD is the same way. You'll always have it. It's just you learn to sort of ignore it and you learn to cope with it.
So based on your experience as a writer, what's the one recommendation you would make to authors just starting out?
To use Amazon, createspace.com, that's their publishing arm, because it helps someone starting out as a nobody who's never published anything to actually get a book published. I wrote the book, most of it in 2005, and it wasn't published till 2014, so I kind of had to wait for technology and innovation to catch up. So if I was to recommend something to a new author today, it would be to use Amazon to start with.
Do you have a website?
I do. It's GregoryGeneConrad.com. Though I'm in the middle of a transition, I started a business in part to help with selling the book. And so that website is GregorianEnterprises.com. But the GregoryGeneConrad.com, that'll stay open for a while to redirect people to GregorianEnterprises.com. So go to GregoryGeneConrad.com.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Gregory Gene Conrad, and he is the author of Fighting the War Against OCD, A Season in the Life of Gregory Gene Conrad. Gregory, thanks very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The following is an excerpt of Fighting the War Against OCD, A Season in the Life of Gregory Gene Conrad, read by the author himself, Gregory Gene Conrad.
Log 1, July 11th, 2005. These past 2 days have been a struggle. It's summer now in Provo. Temperatures range from 82 to 92 Fahrenheit. And with the heat comes sweat, a trifle insignificant fact, not even noteworthy, but not to me, not to one clasped with the iron bands of OCD. Sweating is a crisis. Sweat must be exterminated at all cost. Most of the time, I don't even know why. I just know I have to kill it. How? Simply whisking the sweat off my brow? No, it's far more difficult. Drenching my face, my hair in warm water, scrubbing the perspiration off my face, feeling each and every follicle on my head for the slightest bead of salt. Splashing water across the sink as I drown myself in the water that's getting hotter and hotter every minute. Or maybe I will use the wind to blow it off, sticking my head outside my car window, desperate for a reduction of heat, never satisfied until I feel the last bead of sweat blown away, cooled by the wind as it slaps across my face, still protruding out of the window as I drive faster and faster, giving the wind its necessary momentum. What's this? I feel the saturation of the hair just beyond the reach of the wind. It keeps moving around the cranial circumference. Now I'm struggling to keep the car moving forward even with the road while I strain to turn my head further and further around until I feel the swerve of my car and realize that I'm now looking directly at the car behind me. Such a trite, insignificant event, repeated over and over and over, 40, 80, 100 times each day, all to get rid of that building, escalating wave of anxiety. Anything to feel less anxious. Sweat must be terminated. It must be eradicated at all cost. Or else what? I don't know. Salt dries up, giving me an exoskeleton of salt. It is like extraterrestrial ooze leaking out of my body, ready to kill me if I let enough of it out. Salty ooze. I might even turn into a pillar of salt, like Lot's wife. Doesn't make sense? But that doesn't matter. Logic must never be applied. I must obey. I must follow the cry of my tormentor, lest he whips me more than is necessary. He is always there, standing, itching to lash out, releasing several scarlet streams, bathing my back in blood. His whip is knotted, sprinkled with shards of glass and metal throughout the leather material. He waits in cheery anticipation to enjoy his work, laughing at me. Still, he whispers lies to me, telling me he is there to protect me. But his whip, it cracks hard and swift, and the pain is unbearable. Even when I do what he commands, he whips me when I obey, but he whips me more when I disobey, always filling me with pain and terror, always using my flesh to carve his grotesque masterpiece. No, I will not give in any longer. I'll let him whip me, just long enough to turn and tear the whip from his grasp. Oh, the pain! The whip has never sliced into that area of my skin before. Blood is pouring. Oh, the pain, the pain! I must endure, for now I must endure, until I can turn around completely and make the whip yield to my command. Oh, the pain, the pain! This is what the past 2 days have been like for me, a victim of obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. Log 1. Notes. In the book of Genesis, in the Holy Bible, Lot and his family were told to flee from Sodom just before it was utterly destroyed. On their way out, 3 holy men issued the following command, found in Genesis 19:17. Escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. However, when fleeing the city, Lot's wife disobeyed the commandment issued them. Genesis 19:26 reads, "But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt."
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of the Author Show. Please share this interview with your family and your friends so that they too may have the opportunity to discover our guest and his work. And why not spread the word on social media? We look forward to you joining us next time for another great book and another great author on the Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.